Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all to attend the webinar. Except Zoom platform, we have another live webinar at Facebook too. We will broadcast this at the same time. You may type Utah for you, like our page, Utah page in Facebook, and share this live session to your friends. Let me introduce myself. I'm Jeffrey from Division of Program Promotion, University Tunku Abdul Rahman, Utah. Welcome, and we are happy to have our moderators here, Dr. Ola Renwaju, Dr. Shalini. They are both from Department of Construction Management, Faculty of Engineering and Green Technology, Utah. The title of this webinar is Talk about Impacts of COVID-19 on the Construction Management. The webinar duration will actually take approximately 1.5 hours, include Q&A session. As Zoom is our main platform for this webinar, if you have questions, you may click the Q&A button in Zoom and leave your question. And lastly, we will introduce you Utah Construction Management Program and contact details of Utah if you would like to know more about this program. And now I will pass the session to our moderators today, Dr. Olan and Dr. Shalini, please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ola Renwaju. I'm from the Department of Construction Management. I'm really excited to moderate this panel along with Dr. Shalini. This will take about 1.5 hours, and our goal is to provide a platform as COVID-19 and the construction industry. We pack a lot of information and insight into this webinar. As we know, the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry is very huge. It has been estimated that 3% of the global GDP, which is equivalent to $9 trillion, will be lost due to COVID-19. This money is equivalent to the GDP of Japan and Germany. So therefore, please, this is a good platform to discuss the issue of COVID-19 in the industry. If you need to raise a question, please do this through the chat functions. If time permits us, we will now ask your question to the presenters or speakers. The question that we are not able to provide answer to during the webinar, the panelists will discuss it and will send to your various email. So please welcome all our 4 panelists to the discussion, and Shalini will now go ahead to introduce our panelists to you. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. I'm Shalini here from Utah. So today we have 4 distinguished speakers. So I would like to introduce them one by one. So first we start with Mr. Fu Chek Lee. So he is an engineer by profession, and at present he is a managing director of Pembinaan Mitrojaya Sdn Bhd. Prior to joining Mitrojaya Holdings Group, he served with Jabatan Kerja Malaysia Public Works Department for the period of 14 years. So today he have around 42 years of experience in technical and also management experience. So at present, he serves as the president of Master Builders Association Malaysia, and he also a member board of Construction Industry Development Board Malaysia, CIDB, and Construction Labor Exchange Center Berhad. So the floor is yours now, Mr. Fu. You need to unmute your mic.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Utah, for giving me a platform to talk this morning. And of course, thanks, moderator and all the speakers. Good morning, everybody. As we are aware, the COVID was a global epidemic and was declared by WHO on 11 March, and our Malaysia government declared that on 18 March under Movement Control Order, MCO. This gave us a great impact to everybody, especially the business circle, and the construction industry have no exception. And as you're aware, most of the country closed their border and imposed the travel restriction. So because of that, there's a lot of interruption in the construction. As you can see that for Malaysia, for the 4th quarter last year, our GDP was 3.6. But For the first quarter this year, it drops to 0.7. And our National Bank predicted that by end of this year, the GDP, national GDP will be between -2 to 0.5%. As far as construction is concerned, our GDP for the construction on the last quarter was 1, and third quarter, and then the first quarter of this year was 7.9 negative. That's a totally a drop in the construction. As you can see from the chart, these are various activities of the MCO imposed by the Malaysian government. MCO 1 was 18 to 31st March. And during the first week of MCO, we started to talk to the authority, saying that the construction activity has to start somewhere, especially involving the safety issues, where we need to clear the site, temporary drainage, to prevent the pests, and also some of the structure which are not safe need to be checked. And the crane, especially the tower crane, we need to check the foundation. So because of that, in MCO2, governments allow emergency work, that the works related to safety to be started. And during MCO2, the second week, we also spoke to the activity, to the authority, to allow us to start some construction work, where it does not involve many workers. And subsequent to that, in MCO3, government allow those small-time contractors to start work. Those contractors with workers less than 10 people, they can start work. And on top of that, we also working with the government or authority to get the industry started. And during third week of April, MITI start to register the contractors and ask the contractor to submit for approval so that certain contractors can allow to start work. However, by May 4th, government declared that all construction industry can start work. Now, what are the losses due to the COVID? There are 7,500 project estimate ongoing, put to a total standstill, and financial loss per month is estimated as Malaysian ringgit 11.6 billion. Out of this, the labor cost itself, that is the employment losses, is about 3.48 billion. That's about 30% of the total losses. The material losses, meaning that all the factory, supplier, all that construction material, put the total stock, and the losses is about 4.87 billion. That is about 42% of the cost. And of course, plant and equipment, that is including a rental of plant equipment for the construction purpose, a loss of 1.39 billion. That's approximately about 12%. And of course, the other head office, meaning that the supporting staff, power supply, all that, that's a loss of 1.05 billion in the head office operation. And of course, allow some profit there, about 0.81 billion. That's about 7% profit. Now, during MCO, before MCO, the rate of unemployment was about 3.2%. However, during MCO in March, the employment rate goes up to 3.9, and April it shot up to 5%, and May, recently we see in the paper, it's shot up to 5.3, and it's predicted that by end of this year, it goes up to 6 to 6.5% of unemployment, almost double. This one, despite of wage subsidy given by government, so a lot of people will still retrench the workers. And of course, this figure does not include another 500,000 new workforce entering to the market next year. Now, even though the site is allowed to operate on the 4th of May, many sites didn't operate to the full capacity. As record shows, by end of May, only 30% of sites in operation, but not in full capacity. And by mid-June, only 60% start to operate and 30% operate to full capacity, meaning that they go on full swing. End of June, approximately 77% started operation and about 65% operate to full capacity. By first week July, a study shows that about 93% of work started and about 80% operate to full capacity. Now, there are various reasons why the operation did not start and issues involved why the contractor didn't start the full operation. The first issue is cash flow issue. And this contribute, if you are going to take the costs as 100%, costs of not starting operation at 100%, then cash flow or financial issues carries a weightage of 26%. As you're aware, during the MCO, there's no work, no income, no salary. And then the client or the owner still need to pay full salaries to the workers, and also the overhead still need to be paid. And the worst one is that the construction during Chinese New Year, early January, so most of them have paid the supplier, the subcon on that. And when Chinese New Year, the work stops almost 2 weeks to mid-February, and then the work start after mid-February. By mid-March, the work have to stop due to MCO. So during this period, from March to June, construction work cannot fully started, cannot fully in operation. And even they start in June, the first payment they'll get is 3 to 4 months later. That's expected to be in October. So that caused a serious cash flow problem, and many contractors cannot sustain. So in view of that, master builders did propose to the authority on certain issues. Among them, we told government to forego the levy for at least a year. However, the government reduced the levy for 25% for foreign workers until the end of the year. We told CIDB that levy payment to the CIDB should only start after the 5th progress payment, and then allow for 6 installments. And this was agreed by CIDB. And then we told CIDB to support or to waive all the competency costs. However, CIDB agreed that the competency costs for the project manager, supervisor, and local workers will be free, and foreign workers will be charged 50%. And then we told the authority that the government should release the GST, which is withheld by the government pending on the auditing. And this, I was told that government has positive response, and the GST is released in phases. Of course, we want the government to have a soft loan to the contractor to tie them over this period of financial issue, financial problem. There is at least soft loan guaranteed by the government until the end of the year, so that government can tie in, the contractor can tie in the difficulties in the cash flow. Another thing is that the leasing issues, where a lot of contractors having the machinery have taken loan, especially from the finance company. So that the finance company, some of the finance companies didn't issue them, provide them moratorium. So this is an issue yet to be settled. Now, the second reason why the site is not full operation is due to the confusion of SOPs issued by the government. This contributes to the weightage of 21%. Because basically there are too many SOPs issued by various authorities. That is the National Security Council, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Works, and also the local authorities like Bandaraya or the Town Council issues their own SOP. And most of the time, this SOP doesn't, or rather contradict to each other. And certain time, the minister made some statement, but then this statement was not uploaded fast enough on the SOP. As a result, the problem of enforcement there, when anything minister says, we implemented aside, but the enforcer will come in, there's no such thing on the SOP, not written. So there's a lot of confusion there. For example, they say the contractor can start work in the whole country. And then another SOP come out, no, it's only KL because subject to the testing and so on. So there's a confusion there. So there are also issues on the many enforcement authorities involved, CIDB, police, RELA come in, local council come in, and each of them interpret their own SOPs and their own understanding. So there are confusion on what level of standard they want or what actually they actually want. So there's a confusion there in the construction industry. The third issue here is the delay in COVID testing and also delay in obtaining the result. So this is the issue here that because of the government require that all industry to be tested, so there's an influx of the testing by the workers, causing a lot of long queue to the testing lab. And worse still, when government says that testing will be paid by SOCSO, there are more queue coming in. As a result, the approved lab could not cope with the testing. And the test kit available at that time was very limited, only 20,000 per day. Because of that, a lot of the contractors could not get appointment to do the testing. And sometimes it takes for 3 to 4 weeks to get the testing done. And also the results supposed to come up in 48 hours, now delays to 3 to 4 weeks. So this caused a lot of delays. Now the supply chain. Supply chain is another issue because of our reliance for the import of construction material. And this contributes a weightage of 12%. Because of the COVID in China, because we depend a lot of material supply from China, the parts and the material from China, so their factory closed. So they couldn't have any supply. And likewise, those material that supplied to our port, all the ports are not in operation. So a lot of goods that was delivered cannot be taken out, and then they remain at the port. And of course, our local factory could not obtain the raw material from the importers. As a result, a lot of supply problem comes in. Another issue is that the authorities are not operating during when the construction industry opened for operation. And the worst thing is that this one contribute about 6% in weightage, and the authorities are not online, and some of them are not fully online. So some submission have to be done online, and then after that followed by the hard copy submission and so on. Because of that, there are a lot of approval problems that could not be obtained and delayed. Payment to the authorities cannot be made. Deposit cannot be made, and operating licenses or even the transportation to renew the license also could not be made. So approval for SPCCC, all that, for the certificate of approval, all that also cannot be obtained. So this is another critical issue. Of course, another major issue is the shortage of workers. This also gives a wastage of 6%. This is due to MCO, a lot of the foreign workers that went back could not come back because of restriction in the traveling. Those new workers to replace the workers that the permit expired could not come back. And those workers, especially the illegal workers who are daily paid and who works as a subcontractor, could not get any payment and suffers during the COVID period. Because of that, many of them decide to go home or change job. And this creates a problem of the shortage of workers in the industry. Of course, another issue is roadblock. That is by the police because of the SOPs and the confusion in the approval. So police is based on the roadblocks, based on the approval by MITI. However, some of the approval are incomplete, especially the supply chain, where they give the approval to the supplier, but the transportation will not get approval. And the workers' movement, maybe from a green area, goes to the red area to work, they are not allowed to enter. Or the workers from red area could not enter the green area to work. So there's a lot of roadblocks, and also the SOP was not updated. Because of that, police will start interpreting their own. And of course, when they scan through the code, some of the police have the scanner, some of them don't have. This causes problem, and this contribute about 5% in weightage. Another one is the concern on infection. Because of the COVID-19, the authority required that the contractor to pay for all the testing, and any of the workers found to be infected, the contractor have to bear all the costs of testing and also the quarantine costs. This make the contractor scared because each quarantine will cost them each person who under quarantine will cost them $150 a day at least for 14 days. And if the construction site, a contractor having 50 to 600 workers, then they have to pay through their nose. That's the reason why they are very concerned, and they could not. Some of them do not want to start. And the weightage of this is about 5% of that. Others didn't start the work because they are doing preparation to comply to SOP. That is the requirement for the sanitation, transportation, all that. That is about 1%, minor. And of course, there's another group of contractors to wait and see attitude, waiting for people to do and see what's the outcome before they start. Okay. Other thing I quickly go through issues that need to be highlighted is that the high cost and low productivity. Because the MCO, the cost, basic cost is still there, but to comply to SOP, like social distancing and method of construction, expected the productivity will be down to about 80%, 70 to 80%. So this is a high concern, and the only way to do it is to go automation, and we expect government to have an allocation, especially to automate or to go digital for the construction industry. Of course, local workers is not interested in the construction industry, so we want the government to train more local workers, especially those already in the construction, because this will upgrade their skill and of course allow them to take high pay to bring home. And then with these local skill workers, we can reduce the dependency on the foreign workers. Of course, since the last 3 years, the construction project have been lesser and getting lesser. Was still last year when the government suspend a lot of project. So now we are appealing the government to relook into that, to restart the project. And of course, if government have problem in financing, they can do it under PPP, private public partnership, and government provide the guarantee so that the cost of project can be reduced or cheaper. Of course, another important provision is that the pandemic clause in the future contract have to be studied and included inside the contract. And how do we handle this pandemic? How do we handle the extension of time, or whether compensation can be made to the contractor. I missed out the earlier one, the contractual legal issue. Because of the MCO, a lot of the contractual cannot be fulfilled by various parties, including the project owner or the developer to the house buyer. Contractor cannot deliver the project in time. Supplier cannot supply good in time. Transporter cannot transport the good in time, etc. This will lead to a lot of legal issues and cost money and waste of time. Because of that, we in the industry.
Sorry, Mr. Fu, our time is.
Yeah, I'm last. I'm cutting off. Right? List is last. Right?
Okay, thank you.
Because of that, we are asking government to enact a bill of COVID bill, which I think will be tabled in July this month. So we hope that this contractual issue will be settled. That's all for my presentation. Thank you, everybody. Sorry for taking extra time.
Thank you, Mr. Fu, for the wonderful speech. So we move on to the second speaker for today, Dr. Yeo Yun Fu. So he has a doctorate in research with the TQM, Total Quality Management for Construction Project Management. Then in addition, he holds a fellow membership of the Chartered Institute of Building, CIDB Certificate Construction Project Management, and Accredited Construction Industry Mediator, and AIAC Accreditor and Educator. So he has 40 years of experience in construction training, lecturing, and industry. So he is a founder of member of the CIOB Malaysia branch in 1976. So he was elected as the president of Chartered Institute of Building CIOB Malaysia from 2008 to 2013 and elected as council member since 2019. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Yeo. The floor is yours, Dr. Yeo. Dr. Yeo, you need to unmute your speaker, your mic, sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Shalini, for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Fu has given a full detail of how COVID-19 happened in Malaysia and how it affected the construction industry. He has even outlined the costs and contractual implications towards the construction industry, plus the implementation and operational difficulties and problems encountered with the authorities. My talk will cover three parts. Very quickly, just outline the summary of the COVID-19 in Malaysia and focusing the detail about the impacts that it has towards the construction, and the last part is how to move forward. That's what I'm going to cover. Now, let me share with you the. Can I share the? Okay, now COVID-19 actually is a global problem. All right, now it has actually affected almost everybody, in the whole world. And I will actually list out to you how the whole thing started. It started in December 2019 in China, Wuhan. Then it was first detected in Malaysia on the 24th January 2020. And initially reported cases was just imported cases until localized cluster began to emerge. In response to the search for the spread of the pandemic, Malaysian government has imposed a series of these MCOs since 18 March. I think the detailed part of it, Mr. Fu have already elaborated and how it affected the construction industry. The first two phases no construction was involved, was allowed to operate, and then started from the third stage, where part of the construction selected sectors from 4th May to 9 June actually then started. And then subsequently, when we have this the entire sector was allowed to operate under to social distancing practices and establish standard operating procedures, including mandatory COVID-19 screening tests for construction workers subsequently. Then we have now transitioned into recovery movement control order stage from 10 June to 31st August. And hopefully, then we'll move on to normalization after 31st August. So that is actually a very brief outline of what happened towards the spread of COVID-19 in Malaysia. Now, I haven't got time to go into the detail about the impact towards the construction industry. I only outlined to you how it affected the construction operation into 4 areas. Worksite safety redefined, so it became more stringent on site, how to actually keep the workforce safe from the pandemic. And Mr. Fu has also outlined how it affected productivity, and also the process of worksite safety implemented actually affected the continuity of the work. Nevertheless, the works actually had to be carried out, in one way or another. And subsequent to that, we can expect this process will continue, and eventually, when there are new jobs, consideration has to be taken towards how the work will be operated or normalized. The so-called revised normality for operation, it becomes a normal operation from now. Mr. Fu also mentioned about the supply chain, how it got disrupted, and also very importantly, about the delays and the claims that arose because of COVID-19. So these are the 4 areas I will consider as the main impact towards the construction industry. Now, I will cover about the way forward and how are we going to move on. Now, definitely all parties will be affected because of this pandemic, and this impact have resulted in the need for industry members to address these challenges, as the industry is now faced with a new environment to address in the light of COVID-19. The entire scope of changes need to be addressed, and on issues arising from the pandemic are likely to continue to evolve until a vaccine or medicine or other curative measures are in place. We don't know what is going to end up in the end. Now, the impact emerge include schedule delays, workforce and work disruption, equipment and supply chain disruption, reduced productivity due to site health and safety measures, delays arising of certain restrictions, and financing restrictions, as well as cash flow, as highlighted by Mr. Fu earlier. All right. Now, how are we going to move forward? I think very importantly, we have to actually realize one thing, pertaining to contracts and all this. We know very well every contract has got requirements to fulfill when you want to solve the contractual issues. Most importantly is the contract and project notices for default. should there be anything that arise, notices must be given. That is the normal thing that happens. You can look at all the various contract forms. There is always such requirements. So issue on written notices and all this to all contracted parties, I think should actually be maintained. And tracking and subsequent updates of all the schedule adjustments has to be properly established and documented. I think that is the way forward. I think very importantly, because you don't get panic over it and then you forgot about whatever things that you are supposed to be doing and recording, you know, under the contract. I think that is the very, very most important thing that one should do. Document and record all impacts. I think this is definitely a must. Okay, whatever bill that subsequently passed and whatsoever relies very much on information, you know, whatever that happened before. If it's not properly recorded, then you have a serious problem of how to support it. Now, we know very well workplace safety and health compliance, all this has been revised. Now, instead of keep grumbling about why you had to follow this and that, I think what is important is you have to actually implement measures with strict adherence, not only on the OSHA, but also the best practices issue under the CIDB Malaysia, just to minimize the spread of COVID-19. Maintain a place of employment that is free from recognized hazards that are causing and are likely to cause death or serious physical harm to the workforce in particular. That is very, very important. Distancing with the norm, but of course, you can actually try to adopt some implementation with the help of the technology. Now, the current emphasis on social distancing on job sites will likely to continue, and even after the current health threat crisis. We can expect to see less group activities and also more clearly defined procedures and protocols, routine work tasks also. The need for social distancing, I think, definitely will maintain, and the way to interact with project team probably will resort to interactive web-based tools to allow for project team to hold virtual meetings and all this. So this has to actually go on, and so it becomes the norm already. So you actually try to rely on technology, on video conferencing, email, texting. I think this is already been practiced, but of course, this will actually further enhance with this kind of situation. Why? Just to minimize physical interaction, especially with on sales, on contracts, and ordering of material or resources, all with digital tools. All right. Subcontractors, material suppliers, and the project supply chain. Mr. Fu has highlighted already. We have been over relying on imported items and all this. In this case, that will actually give. It depends how you look at things. Certain companies may want to then move on to downstream kind of business development, or what is important is to move forward. You have to understand the contract documents about your order and the reschedule terms and conditions. Understand all this and negotiate with potential on potential changes for the time arrival, revised time schedule, project completion, and management. Understanding supply agreement and purchase order to determine the impacts of the delay, delivery obligation, payment and financing issues, and other liability risks. This is the way move forward, right? So then we talk about availability of materials. Probably, it will be timely, for us to actually look at to monitor the supply and delivery schedules very closely, and also trying to source for or identify more alternatives or supplies. Okay, as a stopgap measure to try to overcome the present crisis and also take precaution of future recurrence of that. And also always communicate with the suppliers with constant communication, just to actually monitor the situation from time to time. Now, of course, for the suppliers, perhaps it may be a good time for them to consider about inventory control and all this, rather than relying too much from the source of the production. Schedule notices, all this has to be supported. Okay, has to be supported by the schedules, actually to update what is happening, and all this fund becomes a very clear evidence in terms of contractual claims and whatever cost issue or time issues. Okay, so you have to look at what are the requirements under the contract. You are supposed to be providing, updating all your progress. So with this particular pandemic crisis that happens, it becomes even more crucial for scheduling to be done properly, right? So often when you actually update schedules, you have to highlight the critical information that will affect all aspects of the project, including the supply chain delays. I think this is also quite crucial, because you will have to actually look at that as an impact towards the country issue or global issue also. We all know very well that we have been over-relying on supply manufacture from China, and then when the crisis actually very much. And of course, when you talk about scheduling and adjustment, you have to then refer to your workforce coordination also. Because of the overcrowding issue at the site, so you probably have to consider about staggering your work or working in shifts, and not too many people or in groups to be working together at any one time. So the scheduling and adjustment aspect of it has to be considered seriously, from now on. Not just the current project, but future projects as well. So you have to review that as one area, to take precautionary action of all these things that may continue. Never slack on coordination and cooperation at the site. I think continue to coordinate closely, and then making sure that every part of the works are closely coordinated and being cooperated by all parties. I think that is another very important part in moving forward. Now, we know we are into a new norm. So planning and preparation of the new norm becomes a must. I think is very, very important. So we can't take it for granted. We do the same way like before. You have to consider about the new norm and look at the processes and try to plan your work in accordance to whatever the new norm is. Now, this is one part that you actually try to handle to take care of the supply chain matter, because when you actually try to do it the conventional traditional way, of course, then you will have to get resources like labor and material to put them in place at the site and get the construction moving. However, maybe you can consider the adoption of prefabrication or industrial building system to try to enhance the worker safety at the site, because then when everything is all produced at the factory level, lots of things are being able to control properly at the factory level. Okay, so you look at the supply chain and try to increase the workplace safety with lesser labor input at the site level. That probably will be one solution where you can actually move forward. So this is talking about the advantage of prefabrication or IBS at factory level. So assembly line can be more efficient. It will not be also affected by any kind of condition at the factory level. Mr. Fu actually mentioned about now how then do you actually protect
Sorry,
this?
Dr. Yao.
I think
Dr. Yao.
yeah, okay. There are two more points only.
Sorry, your time is almost off. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
The insurance, so eventually the actual science part will have to work very hard towards about how then to secure this, to take care of the risk factor. So this is one part that you have to actually be up to date about the latest development towards the insurance industry. Okay. Now the 11th point talking about claims and disputes. I think we have all the various issues on the claims. We know very well the main issue towards the claims over this kind of pandemic, that is a force majeure. And we know also most contracts will term this force majeure as a neutral event. So they are not subjected to any claim for loss and expense. So you have got these issues there. So one way out, as I have suggested here, that you can try to mitigate the impact by actually looking at some of the areas that you can take care of. First and foremost, very importantly is when you talk about contractors' claims, whatever claims that you pursue, as a contractor, as a responsible contractor, you have to demonstrate your attempt to try to mitigate the impact of the delay or the cost. So you have to demonstrate that you have actually done your part in mitigating whatever the impact that may arise. Okay. Now the some points here towards about amicable settlement. Number one, I actually generally can group it under three categories: the communication part, the records part, and also the relationship part. Okay, communication and comply to notices, that is very, very important. If you want to put in a claim or to be successfully in a claim, first and foremost, you have to demonstrate that you have actually done whatever that you are required to do under the notices and the claims requirements. And you have to understand the contract and the related documents to look at your entitlements. The third one, very important, is the records. I think that's very, very important. If you don't have records to back it up, then you have the disadvantage. Okay, corrective and proactive approach always towards looking for win-win solutions for all the parties. I think you cannot have always one party takes all and then the rest you push it to others. I think that should not be the approach in deciding how to resolve it. Effective working relationship, as I mentioned already, is the most important part. Okay, this is the last part. I term it as a revival with survival. How do you revive and to survive? I think as Mr. Fu highlighted earlier, that there is an acute loss now that encountered by the industry. I think in this part, what I believe that government can actually do is try to introduce to actually continue and expedite the existing jobs, and also find out move on with more jobs to stimulate and speed up the recovery process. Next, to have remote working with digitization. I think we are now in the Industrial Revolution 4, so we actually should try to learn to pick up this and try to move on with digitization. I think they are already in the market, you know, all the various web-based kind of like contract management and administration, integrated project management, and BIM in particular. I think this is one that we have to move forward, and then we have to try to provide more training to all the staff so that they are all ready for the process of advancement in this upskilling the entire workforce. That is what you have to do. And then another area is try to reinvent the new business model. The procurement delivery system, you can, Mr. Fu actually mentioned about PPP, you can look at all the other models where you can actually try to go into an area that you actually add value into the whole business, rather than continue to be, we all know very well, you know, when jobs are getting lesser and more people are having less jobs in hand, so they have to compete. You know? So you don't compete the conventional way. You think of a more innovative or creative model where you can actually offer, always in mind with win-win kind of situation. Try to actually take the lead rather than just follow whatever people are doing. You know? I think that is what I have covered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yeo, for the wonderful speech. So we move on to the next speaker for today, Mr. Kong Wen Kiong. So at present, he is a DBA candidate preparing his final dissertation at University of Wales, UK. So he is a founder of Telford Group of Companies in 2006, and this company specializes in few key segments within the construction industry. For example, plant, factories, bungalow, renovation, hospital, college, and M&E services. So he is a fellow CIOB and was servicing CIOB Council since 2014. And at present, he is the Secretary General of Johor Master Builder Association. So without a further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Kong for his speech. Mr. Kong, the floor is yours now.
Right, good morning. Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Kong, we can hear you.
Right, Dr. Sharini, I can't see the slide. 1 minute, yeah. Right, I think first and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to Utah for this opportunity to be here. And basically, I think what Mr. Fu and Dr. Yao had shared were more on the micro components on the impact of the COVID-19. For my part, it will be more on the focus and on what will happen actually after the June 2020 and beyond. So of course, I think I will be happy to put a disclaimer here that, you know, whatever content that we have shared today has no responsibility to be borne by Utah. Yeah. So I think we can skip this. Next, please, Jeff. So what are people expecting? Okay, I think number one is that, you know, we expect a decline in 2020, 2021 and beyond across the industry. And basically, I think this is what Mr. Fu had shared earlier, that we had actually grown marginally in Q1 2020. Next. So, of course, I think the planning is the key in the construction industry. But the problem is there is still yet to be a comprehensive blueprint for handling the impact of the coronavirus. And in fact, I think this is happening across not only the country, but also this is an issue that was actually being shared by most countries at the moment to come up with a blueprint. In this instance, I would say that the CLB UK, they are doing a good job in coming up with a blueprint, and we look forward to see what will be happening in the next 2 months. So basically, the illustration is to share that the construction industry is still a very important component in our GDP, which takes about 4.5% of the industry, and actually I think it has an impact of across the whole industry that impacts on almost 140 different disciplines. Next, please, Jeffrey. So what we expect next is that there should be a reduction in the expenditure, I think both at the government level and also at the private level. So what is shared here is that basically these are the numbers and the figures that were published by the Statistics of Department of Statistics in Malaysia, of how much we are spending, and I think we can see that there will be a negative sign in some of the GDP, the exports, and also the imports. Next. So let's see what the expert has said. Yeah, basically the COVID-19, as shared in the Deloitte report, is that there are 3 components to be looked into. First, I think is the direct impact on the production, which has been shared by Mr. Fu earlier, the supply chain and the market disruption. I think this has got to do with the import and the export, and generally we also find a problem with the materials being imported, and perhaps I think in the long run, I think we should look into more products to be manufactured locally. Third is the financial impact on the firms and the financial markets. I think this has been shared by Mr. Fu and Dr. Yao as well. Next, please. So what we realize, I think what both Mr. Yao and Dr. Yao and Mr. Fu had touched on is the legal issues. So let's see what Akadis, a very reputable QS firm, has shared, in this area. I think first, I think we explore the possibility of the force majeure and extension of time in our claims, especially for the builders. A lot of builders will be claiming for the EOT, and but the issue here, it gets a little bit tricky. It really depends on the type of contracts that you sign with the client and are prepared by the QS. So basically, I think in common we get to see a few common forms of contract. You have the PAM, you have the IEM, the JKR, FIDIC. Now these days you get to see FIDICs, and last but not least also the CIBB contracts. I think among all, there shouldn't be much of a problem to claim for the EOT due to a force majeure. But I think what we get to realize in the JKR form of contract is that it did not really spell out the pandemic, under the force majeure terms. I think this is something that the government would probably need to look into to add in this clause, in the future form of contract. And second thing is, I think the bill, the temporary measure, and basically, I think yet until this moment, we have not seen any temporary measure for the bill in the Malaysian Parliament. And I think basically, without the bill, we see a lot of confusion in the market, where a lot of gray areas, between the client and the developers, and also the end users, are not properly spelled out. And hopefully, like what Mr. Fu had shared earlier, that the bill will be introduced in July this year. Next. So what about the frustration? Actually, basically the term frustration, is to be introduced in the event if the contractor or the builder cannot make any claims for the EOT under the contract that has signed. And of course, it will be a long legal issue, and in a lot of instances, some money would have to be spent by the builders in contest for the EOT to be granted. And what Dr. Yap had shared earlier is a neutral event. COVID-19 is a neutral event. There's no way for us to make any claims for the loss and expense. Yeah. So next, please. So how are the existing building contracts affecting the delays caused by the COVID-19 outbreak? Okay, this is one illustration to see how the vacant possession is being scheduled before the MCO ends. This is actually much clearer. If the vacant possession is actually scheduled before the MCO ends, I don't think that's much of a problem. Next. But the problem is when the vacant possession is scheduled after the MCO ends. So basically, it's a illustration to show how the impact of the EOT to be ideally granted, yeah, to the builder and also perhaps a developer to hand over the vacant possession to the client. So here it says, there will be a 7 days, yeah, mobilization and also 3 months. So this is a very ideal situation. Next, please. And of course, we got to see that, from the Malaysian houses, the Malaysian house prices, we would anticipate that, we are actually on a declining trend. So what this declining trend would mean is that there might be less development in 2020 and beyond. And also, I think the builders and the developers are also in the turmoil of handling the job, on time to the end user. So in this aspect, the bill will be able to help to further extend the time to hand over the possession, to the end user or if not the ultimate buyer. So next, please. So in this instance, in short, yeah, I think the lawyers and the property owners could be quite happy. Why? Because the lawyers, I think we are expecting there are more legal disputes, after the MCO. And also, I think as for the property owners, they might be able to make some claims because the houses were delayed to be handed over. So in this instance, I think the developers and the builders should be the worried ones. Next, please. And what happened is that I will touch a little bit on the industry sector. Okay, despite the fact that the COVID-19, yeah, has a global impact, but what we see, point number one, is that the ringgit value in an international currency market remains very low. So when it is low, what it means is that it's actually very competitive. So I would say that there might be more interest actually from the foreign companies to come to Malaysia, to choose Malaysia as a place because of the lower production and also the lower operation costs. But of course, I think the secondary issue behind the scene is also how the new government is able to convince all this new foreign investment to come into the country. Next, please. And second to that, I think during this time, the COVID-19 has also created a platform for the trade war. We get to realize that the US and China had come to a trade war where both countries are starting to cut down on the number of imports and exports, to the country. So I believe at this moment, Malaysia may become an ideal location for such purpose due to its established legal system and infrastructure in comparison to many Southeast Asian countries. Actually, when you look at the Southeast Asian roadmap, we get to realize that Malaysia is actually second, to Singapore to have a very established legal system and infrastructure. Next, please. So by saying that, actually, I look a little bit further into who our main foreign investors are, and you get to realize that China and USA, I didn't actually expect USA to be a second, yeah, but it happens that the Chinese and the Americans are actually the major foreign investors here. So in a way, I think from the geopolitical understanding, Malaysia can be potentially a very good center for these two countries to produce their products and then later on export to both countries through the Malaysian channel. So of course, I think down the road, we also get to see other countries such as Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, UK, and all that. Sorry, hello, can you hear me? So next, please. Okay, what happened is that there might be some potential changes ahead. I think earlier on, CLAP had actually introduced the idea and the implementation of the centralized labor quarters. I think Mr. Fu would have a better idea in this instance. But what happened is that I think the experience drawn in Singapore has shown that the intensified living condition among the workers can create such a big problem, especially when it comes to the disease infection. So despite the fact that I think a few days ago we had seen the news from the CIDB stating that starting from September, the implementation of the CLQ will have to kick into the picture. So in this instance, I do think that there might be a delay to this implementation. So okay, next please. And okay, this is actually a graph in Singapore. We get to realize that this idea of centralized labor quarters actually do not favor the current condition. Why? Because as I earlier mentioned, is actually a bait. It becomes a bait, yeah, for the infection among the workers in such intensified density. Next, please. So both Dr. Yao and also Mr. Fu had highlighted the foreign worker shortage. Actually, in the industry, we get to realize a serious problem. Why? Because first, I think the illegal workers will be deported. I think during this period of time, I think we expect the illegal workers, they are not able to work in a lot of the construction site. Why? Because they are not able to undertake the COVID-19 test. I think this is a way to screen off the illegal workers during this period. And what we also realized after the MCO, a lot of all these foreign workers had already left Malaysia before even the MCO. And after the MCO, to my personal understanding, actually quite a big number of them would not think of coming back to Malaysia. So it becomes a real challenge at this moment, how we are going to solve the problem without these foreign workers in place. Third, please. So we would anticipate that there will be an increased use of the IBS, not because of convenience, but due to the situation. So there might be more use of the steel structure construction, or if not the precast building elements in the industry. And in fact, lately, after the MCO, I have personally tried out a site-based IBS system methodology, and I found that actually, it is really not bad. And I think other than using the factory-made IBS system, you will get to realize that some sites may be able to cast their own IBS system on site. That is to eliminate the cost of the mobilization. Because a lot of time, I think IBS has a challenge of not getting to be popular. Why? Because one of the key cause is actually due to the logistic. Next, please. So, okay, so the good news is, I think some number of the government projects may revive. I think at this moment, what we have lately seen in the market is that the idea of the HSR between the KL city and Singapore may be revived very soon this year. Next. And the East Coast Rail Link, I think, is another potential project in the pipeline that will be revived. Next. And more, actually, as I mentioned earlier, the industrial factors may grow. So I would personally feel that there might be more manufacturing plants and factories to be built amidst this COVID-19 crisis. There will be less residential units at this moment, but don't be upset. Why? Because I think there will be more factories and plants to be built up in the next 2 years. Next.
Hello, Mr. Kong. We'll be glad if you can summarize your presentation now.
Mr. Kong, are you there?
I think he has internet problem, I think.
So can we move on with next speaker?
Let's give him 1 minute to come back. Let me send a message to him.
Hello, sorry. I think, okay. I believe that there are 5 economic corridors built by the BN government before.
Yep. Mr. Kong, please, can you summarize your remaining presentation because of time constraint?
Yes, hello. Next, please.
Presentation. We have no more time.
Sorry, there's a problem with the connection. Yeah. Sorry.
Yes.
Next,
we understand that.
Yeah, Dr. Allen. Yeah, next, please. So, of course, I think the government and the CIDB should continue in the leading role. I think for the past few months, the industry has been waiting, but I think recently on the 12th of July, what the minister had said was that, 70 million will be spent on the construction industry. But I think many of us in the industry are looking forward to more. Why? Because seriously, I think when you look into the nature of the 70 million expenditure, you get to realize that a lot of all this expenditure are more on the training of the workers. But I think we have more immediate issues at the moment, to be dealt with. Training, I think, is good. We cannot deny the fact that trainings are good, but that will be for the future. And there are more immediate effects, of the COVID-19 for us to be dealt with at the present moment. So I hope that CIDB will come up with more. And hopefully, I think Mr. Fu has been fighting hard, in this instance. I think in talking to the government and representing us, as builders in the industry to continuously get the support, from the government. So next, please. Okay, my session is done, Dr. Allen. Thank you, and sorry for the disruption earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Kong, for the wonderful speech. So now we move on with our last speaker for today, Mr. Leong Tat Fat. So he is a senior manager of Gamuda Engineering Sdn Bhd. Currently, he is a leading IBS construction project in Gamuda Building Unit and a unit council member of Chartered Institute of Building Malaysian branch. in 2019 to 2021. So he have more than 20 years of experience in overseas, Thailand and Singapore under multinational company as a project manager. So without a further ado, I would like to invite him. Mr. Leong, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon, Utah. Good afternoon, Dr. Oran, Dr. Shani, Mr. Fu, Dr. Yao, Mr. Kong, and all the audience with me now. So thank you for listening. Okay, before I start, I just want to highlight a bit. Actually, my topic is more on the groundworks experience on the COVID, the impacts from this COVID-19. Okay, before I have more slides to share, first of all, I would like to share with you to show that how actually Gamuda dealing with this pandemic.
COVID-19 has infected millions of people globally. A nationwide movement control order was imposed, and Gamuda formed a COVID-19 steering committee. COVID-19 measures were put in place. Guidelines and procedures were drawn up. Tunneling and long-span viaducts, which are critical works, need to go on for public safety. In line with government guidelines, the workforce at sites has been reduced by 50%. Mandatory COVID-19 testing is carried out on all workers at site, and retests are done periodically. If a worker or staff tests positive, a dedicated ambulance is ready to take the infected worker to a designated hospital. Gamuda has procedures in place to control the spread, in line with the Ministry of Health's efforts. For effective follow-up action, contact tracing has gone digital. While the Ministry of Health launched My Sejahtera, Gamuda has an application complementing it. After workers download the app on their phones, it generates a QR code that is scanned on site, and workers are tracked using GPS, making contact tracing fast and effective. Centralized Quarantine Quarters, or CQQs, has been set up for any eventuality under strict Ministry of Health guidelines. Other site requirements are workers must practice the minimum 1 meter social distancing, daily temperature monitoring, provision of hand sanitizers, and mandatory use of masks. Similarly, hygiene and health briefings are done, and sanitization and cleaning of equipment and workplaces are adopted. Also, modified shift schedules allow for better segregation of workers. With several central labor quarters, or CLQs, operating and housing thousands of workers, the safety and health of our workers have been our priority. CLQ layouts have been redesigned and reconfigured by installing physical barriers or firewalls that separate workers into different blocks. Each block has separate entrances and facilities. This prevents community spread between different blocks in the same CLQ. The occupation density at CLQs has been reduced by redistributing workers between Gamuda's CLQs. Social distancing is practiced while traveling, and transportation is disinfected before every use. During the MCO period, workers are only allowed to travel between CLQs and work sites. Upon arrival at CLQs from work sites, temperature monitoring is again carried out. The occupation density in rooms have been reduced to a maximum of 4 personnel per room. Social distancing is enforced in all public areas within the CLQ. All common facilities are sanitized 3 times a day. Professional sanitization is carried out weekly on all common areas and rooms. To minimize external contact, groceries are supplied within the facilities. Workers can do their own washing in-house. Awareness materials are made available for workers to understand how to guard themselves during this period. Our workers' and staff safety and health are our priority. Gamuda is committed towards working safely to fighting COVID-19 for a safer Malaysia.
Okay, next the video is actually just demonstrate how the government are dealing with the pandemic during the MCO time. And these are the timeline MCO imposed in Malaysia. Okay, I just want to highlight, I think previously Mr. Fu and Dr. Yao has highlighted the timelines of the MCO in very detail. Over here, I just want to highlight a bit on what's going on the ground. Okay, from the MCO, during the MCO time, from the 18th March up to the 3rd of May, okay, well, we spend a lot of times in moving in the workers, to bring the workers to go for the COVID test, and a lot of energy spent on studying on the SOP, how to deal with that, this and that. So during this time, we also apply and obtain the media approval in a very early stage, that we are among the 30% that obtain the media approval, because we are using IBS, less worker on site. But the problem is, like Mr. Fu say, because there are the contradicting on confusion on the SOP, because the project is in Selangor area, so we have to subject to the Selangor the local council approval as well. With beside this media approval, that's a big confusion. So the site have been visited by CIDD and Dodge and several times, and during this time, so we just consolidate the SOP and in preparation for this the labor camp, okay, to move in the workers who stay outside, so they have a better control of that. So during the regional MCO, I think most of the supply chains are back in order. So we really can't move very much during the MCO time, because we're still stuck in the supply chain. And come to the recovery MCO, then we are busy in working out the time loss and the monetary loss, and how much we lost, how much time debating with our consultant clients on the EOT, how long should we under the EOT or something like that. Then of course we are struggling, for timeline. So lost, we have to work out a mitigation plan of that. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, these are the series of SOP that MCO. Okay, so managing COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, COVID-19 deep measure instruction. We have management of CLQ during partial lockdown, and we have establishment of the management of CLQ, CQQ for COVID prevention, and project emergency vehicle and emergency medical service, or we call it EMR. Okay, this is in response to all those BUI, the person. So these are the SOP that we have. What are the key instructions from the SOP? So I just summarize it. The key things so from the groundwork to prepare. Okay, first is the CLQ. The CLQ is the most important thing that we have to look at. Okay, first, okay, we have to look at the relocation of workers. So before the lockdown, many workers think so they come or rented property. In the MCO time, we struggling to build a camp inside our construction site. Okay, it is very challenging. So of course during the so we have a problem on transportation, so from the CLQ to the work site. All this so we have to establish the SOP and make sure everything is in order. Okay. After the CLQ done, so we need the CLQ management, okay, customization. So we have to control the people who stay inside the CLQ. I have a photo and illustration that can show you later on. And okay, then the second one is the test. the COVID-19 swab test. So everyone have to undergone swab test before they allow back to work. Make sure the result is negative. Then basically we need to go for the test. Okay, these are one of the things that we have to ensure that everyone is in safe conditions, healthy condition in the work site. Okay, that is the site measures and control. Okay, these are the items that we have to maintain a site. So okay, we have to make sure that people are wearing masks, or no hand sanitation, people provided, and social distancing have to be practiced. Of course, so we have to make sure everyone's registered to our contact tracing app, and we know where are they. So during working time, okay, we also restrict movement of the worker who stay in CLQ. We will not allow them to go out without prior approval. Okay, in the ERP. Okay, these are the 4 things that we actually get drawn out from all these SOP, that a series of SOP that given to us to implement a site. Okay, first we have to look at the CLQ management. Okay, from my left, this is actually from the MRT CLQ. I think look very nice because they have a long duration of the contract, so and have a high budget. So over here, that this is the CLQ at the job site for the building works. Normally they have a shorter duration of contract period, and we then have a lower budget as well. Okay, my job site before the MCO, actually we intend to build a camp, label a CLQ. This is the, and we have the cabin, the accommodation cabin, and this is the toilet, and this is the kitchen. So after the MCO, then we receive the instruction that we need to pasteurize the camp. So then we have to find a way to make to divide divide the camp into 2 clusters. So in between here we have to put up a firewall that make for metal sheet. So meaning to say the 2 clusters have their own facilities and the security entrance. All right. So over here is their accommodation, and then they have their toilet and paving area and kitchen. Over here, we need to put extra kitchen for the new cluster. I think that we are trying to make it up, to make it up in place during the MCO time. So we have to add another security entrance over here. This is just a typical thing that we are doing and the effort that we spend during the MCO time. All right. Okay, the typical accommodation, I just let you have idea just now. Oh, this is the illustration of our accommodation cabin. It's a kitchen dining area. It made from a steel container. We convert our kitchen into by using a steel container, cargo container, so that it can be knocked down and reassemble the other side as a new location. Okay, these are the photo that. Okay, this is the kitchen that we have a compartment. We have a separate by the compartment, and these are the table that for dining area for the workers. Okay, this is the toilet together with the shower head provided inside our toilet, typical toilet. So for traditionally, I think in most of the CLQ, they provide this paving pool. So we also realize that this paving pool is actually a source that actually get the disease transmitted. So therefore we decided to use the container type. We convert the container, steel container, cargo container into this cubicle toilet. Okay, so this is something like look like the toilet. So the workers, can use can actually use this for showering without using the pool. This is where the source of the potentially can transmit the disease. Okay, this is typical the entrance control. So in each cluster we will have this turnstile with the security guard to control people in and out. Because we really mean it, we want to keep the worker away from have a contact with outside people. So why we have a cluster CLQ, because just in case of emergency, just in case of one of the workers that we contracted or put under BOI, then we be able to cut, at least one cluster still allow back to work. This is actually to cut down the risks of transmission. Okay, these are the typical things that we are doing on the camp, so during the MCO time on the groundwork itself. And okay, second one is the mandatory test for the COVID-19 test. So under this MOH guideline, so they only recognize PTR. So sorry. So RT-PCR, so it's a real-time reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction. So the test is actually to take the sample from the nose. And because of the RT-PCR, so it costs about 380 ringgit. If let's say you want to retest every time, if let's say you have 100 workers, easily every time you have to spend 38,000 for the test. So because we have a huge amount of the workers, so we actually think of the alternative for the retest. So right now we are implementing this RT antibody. Okay, of course the result is not so accurate, but this is just a retest for the first, first test. Okay, if they say they have been tested positive, so we have to carry out the PT. We have to carry out the other RT-PCR test to confirm whether the worker is actually been contracted COVID-19 or not. So actually, this is actually to cut down our cost for the retest purpose. Okay, I think we have a case that one of our workers actually been tested positive. So from beginning, we also a bit worried. So then later on, we send him for another RT-PCR. So later on, we found that it's negative. So, but it's actually quite useful. I mean, if let's say you want to repeat for the repeat testing, I think this is one of the measures that we can think of. Okay, come back to the site measure and control. Of course, beside all the SOP, the SOP is quite straightforward. So we have implement more than that. Okay, so at every job site, so we have to maintain the daily attendance and temperature checking, and contact tracing compulsory, and daily morning toolbox to be divided into small group and or multiple sessions. Okay, divide into a small group. The team leader going to ensure all preventive measures are followed. Okay, lunchtime also we have to confine them to certain areas to reduce the movement. Okay, and restrict the entry of visitor, and prior approval is required. And delivery process, so we have to what require a postcard that temperature, sanitization and self-declaration of health status by the driver, and PPE must be wear at all times. These are the measures that we have to implement at site. Okay, these are the typical contact tracing that we implement at site. Okay, so every morning, before they come to site, so the worker have to be queued up and for registration, and they'll be given PPE, the mask, and temperature checking, and regular disinfection process, and morning toolbox with 1 meter apart. From the background, we can doing the landed over here by using the IBS system. Okay, for those working in a high-rise building, I think that is a very, very challenging, that especially you have to use for this
Mr. Leon,
liquor transportation. Yeah.
Our time is running out. Just help us to summarize. Thank you.
Okay, I going to almost done. So let me go to a conclusion. So we have a problem by using the transportation because every case that we only allow 6% inside, including the operator. So meaning to say you're going to have a long time for transport all the worker to the destination floor. Okay, the ERP is the CQQ. CQQ, if let's see one of the workers have been in contact with the COVID-19 patient, so we will cast quarantine quarters. So we have to put them inside until the result is out after 14 days. So these are the things that we prepare. This normally we are using the completed unit as a temporary measure. The workers from the labor camp. All right. Okay. Challenges. Of course, most of the speakers have been highlighted. Right. I just very quickly and just repeat some of the items like, okay, of course, cost impact, time impact and disruption in supply chain. Of course, we have a problem to pass down our message. People of the workers, some from Nepal, some from Bangladesh, some from Indonesia. So we have different languages that we have conveyed to let the world. So we have to study one by one. Okay. Of course, the last is we have to make sure if they say anything happen, that our ERP plan must be ready and carry out effectively. If not, if the COVID-19 is still spread problem, we are facing the consequences of the stop work order, and it's going to be a long way to complete the project. All right. So okay. Finally, that I want to highlight here. So some of the industry stakeholders are actually thinking that the new normal will see a drop in productivity and will cause in the property market. I think it's time for us to rethink the construction methodology that we can actually raise the productivity and less dependency on the foreign labor forces. Okay, of course, one example like most of the panelists already highlighted, embarking on the prefabrication construction or IBS. Yes, construction using IBS is slightly more expensive, let's say compared to the conventional one, but they really cut down a lot of labor forces, and actually the speed is there. Okay. Beside this, I think for those elements that we can't use IPS, I think we have to think of a system form. The system formwork to replace those traditional formwork. Okay, formwork technology, I think we need to enhance, especially in Malaysia. I think we still have a long way to go. I think to let everyone understand the formwork technology, and that certainly he needs to be promoted. Okay, so that actually by using a system formwork, actually we can cut down the labor force as well. I think we can have speed in time and have potentially a cost saving. I would say that. Of course, you can think of off-site fabrication of rebar. Okay, so to cut down the bar bender at site, actually we can actually do it off-site fabrication. So like we can cut to length using the cage system. You fabricate in the cage and then deliver to site and straight away install to the job site, and then that actually can cut down the labor as well. Okay, then you using the lightweight panel to replace the brickwork and extra. I think these are the typical example that we should think of in terms of how to cut down the labor force at site. So it's actually this is what we should have to look into it. Okay, besides just now the 3 panelists have been highlighted. I think these are the groundwork that we should actually study and look into it seriously. Okay, leveraging technology over physical distancing constraint. Okay, during the MCO time, I think most of the consultants, my client, they can't actually visit the site, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we have a lot of webinar, but then and meeting, and some they can't really know and then physically see themselves how is the progress, for a project. Actually, we can think of like, we are using the virtual reality example, like the Metapod. Okay, with this we have a 360 degrees. The camera actually in place. Even though you are not in Malaysia, you're in another country, you still can use a VR to actually, to go for site inspection or progress monitoring. You can actually site walk from home. That's kind of concept. I think it's very useful. I think we should have to start to look into this. This kind of technology actually can actually cut down the necessary for the site inspection. All right. Again, lastly is the CLQ management across the construction industry in Malaysia. Okay, we should have to emphasize on the CLQ facilities, the quality, right, and the health screening. I think in Malaysia in January, I think I would say we still lack of quality CLQ management in most of the construction site. So if let's say we can provide a better CLQ facilities, I think we even can attract the local people to stay. We can, the local people also can participate. One of the solutions that we can think of to replace the foreign worker. If they say one of the trouble, they say during this pandemic. Okay, I think my time is up. And for listening.
Hello. Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Leon.
Yep, I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm listening. We now go to ask some few questions. Just maybe two questions, I think, because of time constraint. Thank you so much. And the first question, Mrs. Nuru Oda want to know, in terms of cost, how much is COVID-19 will cost a project?
Okay, it's depending on the headcount. Okay, I think for the test itself, it's 300. We are spending around 380 per pax for the first test. Okay, let's say politically that we have to go for tests, and easily we'll take up significant amount that you know for my project cost.
Okay, I think the next question can be answered by Mr. Fu or Dr. Yao. And one of our participants, Mrs. Si Chayin, she wants to know, how will a contractor absorbing the construction cost due to COVID-19?
Can you repeat?
Okay, the question is, the person wants to know, how is a contractor absorbing losses due to COVID-19?
Actually, for the time being, contractor have no choice, but for the sake of going on the job, they will proceed to do the job. But we are waiting for the COVID bill, see any way we can claim. Because we expect some extension of time. Of course, many people say you go to force majeure, but then force majeure, I don't think is the correct clause, because the force majeure is only allow you to handle the extension of time without any claim. As a contractor, there are a lot of things involved besides the prevention of following the SOP, social distancing, infection, and also the productivity, okay, will be greatly reduced. As I said, the productivity will, if we are following the SOP, productivity will reduce to 80%. So the cost is higher, but productivity is lesser. So that is the reason why we are looking into how can the contractor be compensated. For example, in Singapore, there's a provision there for them to claim. And then this will have to be justified by the contractor and their costs. Of course, different projects have different costs. I can't really say how much is the cost on that. Do I answer that?
Yes, I think the answer is what the person wants to hear. I think it's okay. Okay, but because of time constraint, I think we have to stop the webinar here. On that, I would like to sincerely thank all our fantastic panelists for their contribution. I would also like to thank our audience and the organizer of this event. And please, I'll be very grateful if the participant can give a vote of thanks to all our panelists, and we hope to see them again in future. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you to our speaker today who shared this valuable info with us. So we are about to end this webinar session now. As we mentioned earlier, Utah do offer construction management program, and I will give you all a quick look with some of our Utah info here. So this is our Utah Kampa campus located at Perak. And this is Tun Dr. Ling Leong Sek Ho. Our Utah branch, Utah Sungai Long campus, located at Selangor. So this is our construction management program offered in Utah. So this is a 3-year program, full-time program, and located at Kampa campus. So this program actually gives students a thorough understanding of the entire construction info. And also these are construction, we emphasis of this construction, completion, occupation, and maintenance of facilities. And also students are introduced to the current technology skills and the best practice, which is more focused in this information modeling, surveying, value engineering, project management. So due to the time limitation, so if let's say our friends are interested in our construction management program, you can actually reach us at our Utah website, study.utah.edu.my or /cn if you prefer Chinese version. Also, you can update all our Utah info at our Facebook page, Utah for You, or add us in this WeChat ID, UtahNet, or you can actually approach us or maybe contact us through this hotline 016-223-3557 or 011-1107-3427. If you prefer to send us email, yes, you may. You can send to this inquiry at utah.edu.my. Our officer education counselor from Division of Program Promotion will answer your question. So thank you to all our friends to attend this webinar and supporting. Have a nice day to all of you. Thank you.